What's up, guys? In this episode of Toilet Talk, our guest is Kyle. His family runs Klein Septic services, and they do services like septic pumping, installation, grease pumping, sewer lines, jetting, and so on. And they are a 20-truck business. And Kyle is here to tell the story of how they went from a 1-truck business to a 20-truck business. You want to stick around to the end because Kyle will share his recipe for success of growing a business past those barriers and getting to the size that they are today. This is a good one, so let's jump right in. All right. Well, welcome, Kyle, to this episode of Toilet Talk. First off, let's start with, can you tell us a little bit about your business?
Absolutely. So my name's Kyle Klein. Our business is Klein Septic Services. We're located in Mount Joy, Pennsylvania, which is about an hour and a half outside of Philadelphia. We started this business in 2012 after my dad had sold his share of and semi-retired from another septic and wastewater company. Decided that he wasn't ready to retire, so me, him, and my brother just jumped into business again. And we've just been, we started as 1 truck and the 3 of us, and have grown to where we're at now.
Nice. And I think you're at 20 trucks now. Is that correct?
Yeah, right around 20 trucks between all of our services and divisions.
Can you explain your services and divisions?
Absolutely. Our bread and butter is still residential septic pumping, but then we also do a lot of sewer and drain line cleaning, including hydrojetting, and along with that, we do septic and sewer repairs, including CIPP lining, and then we also do a lot of restaurant grease trap service. Nice.
That's awesome. You have a good mix.
Absolutely. Yep. We try to stay pretty diversified.
So this episode's really about when a business like yours is growing. You went from 1 truck to 20 trucks, and you have diversified services. There's clearly systems and processes that you need to put in place to make that work really smooth. Can you talk about some of the evolution of your systems and processes that you've put in place over the years?
Absolutely. We've really started from scratch with really no systems or softwares or anything in place. We were basically just operating off of printed invoices from our invoicing system. We started off with another platform, and now we've moved to QuickBooks, but a very similar type thing, just printing off invoices to writing notes on there. And then scaling all the way up to where we're at now, with having full systems in place, systems that are super important to us, like ServiceCore. We rely very heavily on our CRM just to make sure that we are properly keeping track of property notes, service history, and then just really keeping the whole process streamlined from initially taking the job all the way out to invoicing. We've got systems in place there that are helping out with the office staff as well as the field technicians. And then also just having other systems in place, such as safety programs, and making sure that, on the compliance end of things, that we're checking all of our boxes.
And when you guys were scaling, at what point, maybe if you can say in truck count, at what point did you go, hey, printing out lots of paper, this is breaking and we need something else? What point was that in your journey?
That happened right around 4 or 5 vehicles. At that point, about five trucks is where it just felt like we were kind of off to the races, and the administrative work was becoming overbearing, and we just really needed to speed things up in the office, because we very much view our office as the extension and the backbone of our field technicians. They're there to support them in the field. That the quicker they can get them information, the quicker they can get them jobs, just the smoother everything runs.
And was that all septic, or was that when you added new lines of business?
At that point, we had started getting into grease trap service, and that really added a lot more administrative work for us. We were just doing a lot more jobs a day. A lot more emergency work came along with that, and then that's what really sparked the growth then for starting the sewer and drain service. Those kind of things just went hand in hand with each other. So once that started happening, like, we couldn't just rely on handwritten notes and all that. Like, we really needed to have a place to keep everything organized.
And your story is going to resonate with a lot of our audience, because we hear and have seen lots and lots of paper being printed out at businesses before.
Yes. I mean, even with our first CRMs that we were using, it was still a lot of printing paperwork orders. This line of business is unique. There's a ton of CRMs out there that are, designed around field services, but the septic and wastewater industry is just very unique. It requires very specific information, and we were trying to make some of these other softwares fit our business. But we got to a point then where we needed something that understood our industry, that understood the information that we needed, the information we needed to collect, manifesting, all of that. So.
Got it. And I can imagine too, once you added grease, it's a different cadence, because you have recurring routes that are, I need our grease pumped every week, every other week, things like that, versus septic, where it might be, I'm going to this house and then 2 years later, you're going back to that house. So I bet that added some complexity.
Absolutely. It was very much the shift from call-in service and scheduling to having things that are just on a recurring schedule. Having software that is tracking that and streamlining that versus, just having notes and repeated, Google calendars and stuff like that. It was a big change, and it really forced us to kind of take things up a notch.
One of the things we hear a lot is the dreaded, I have a driver that called out sick, or, something came up. Can you give me the before and after using software of before that, when a driver called out sick, what did it look like? And then now, what does it look like?
So before, when a driver called out sick, it was, me and my brother were expected to kind of drop what we were doing and hop in a truck, or, just start begging and pleading with guys to pick up the slack. One of our biggest headaches had always been having to reschedule jobs. And I can't even begin to count the number of jobs that before having systems in place that we needed to pull it off the schedule. Somebody forgot to take note of it. It ended up being weeks before anybody remembers to get it back on schedule. So just trying to, when you're moving fast and, really cranking up the number of jobs that you're doing a day, like, you can't rely on memory anymore. You need things in place to hold on to that information for you. Now we are so blessed to have a great team. We are huge on cross-training technicians. A lot of our, septic and grease guys started off in our sewer and drain side of things, where they don't need a CDL. They can kind of get their feet wet with wastewater, and then we help them to go and get their CDL, progress up in the company, just, add another skill set to them. And then we also have a fantastic general manager who started off as a pump truck driver, and he's been with us a long time, and he was just the obvious choice for us when we recognized the need for that role. So he's always game to step in and help out. So, just having the right people on your team that are just team players is just, has been so instrumental.
That's awesome. Awesome that you're creating professional growth opportunities as well. But what happens today now that you have software when, that driver calls out sick? How do you approach looking at the dispatch board and reassigning things?
So whenever possible, we try to just reassign the entire day's worth of work. Now, if for some reason we wouldn't have somebody to step into that, then we just kind of get into like a little bit of a triaging effect where, hey, these are the must-do jobs. We cannot reschedule these. Unfortunately, sometimes it's residential septic that kind of gets the short end of the stick and gets the reschedule. But most times we're dealing with customers on the residential side that they've got a notice from the township. They just need to be done anytime this year. We have great customers that are always understanding that, if a truck goes down or technician calls out sick, that they've been super understanding for the most part.
Nice. Another question that we see a lot on Facebook groups and from our own customers is what to charge. And obviously it varies depending on where you are in the country, but I would assume that when you had one truck, you pretty much, you're going to charge whatever you can do to get that job. As you've scaled, how has your approach changed to pricing your services?
Yeah, that's probably one of the things that we did not plan for, is that as you're scaling, that it's not like a one-to-one correlation as far as, the more trucks you have and, the more volume that you're doing, your expenses aren't going up one-to-one with that. Oftentimes you reach a point where the expenses kind of take a steep incline up. So there's been periods early on where we were forced to be a little more reactive with that of, oh man, profit's not where we'd like to see it. So we need to make some adjustments, to now, we've got our finger on the pulse a little bit better. But like you said, at the very beginning, it was, we're charging whatever we can just to get work out, get the phone ringing, to now, we've built a name for ourselves. People seek out our services now. If private equity's become the big thing in the industry now, and the more companies around us that are selling out to them, the more customers we have looking for local service again. But yeah, so we're getting into a position now where we're able to charge what we need to charge to cover our costs and everything. We've adopted more of the mindset that we don't do anybody any good if we don't charge enough to stay in business. So, yeah.
And what changed the most? Was it more your commercial work on pricing, or was it the residential work, or both?
A little bit of both. The residential one is one that we've always been the most apprehensive as far as raising costs. We all go home at night. All of our employees have families and everything. We all live in our world and, see costs rising everywhere else. So we really try not to raise prices if we don't absolutely have to, for our residential customers. On the commercial side of things, things have been pretty smooth there. We've never really had much of an issue charging what we need to charge there. Luckily, on the commercial side of things, jobs move a little bit faster. We can make up a lot more time with, or we can make up on the time side of things. So we can typically get a few more jobs done in the day. So commercial is a little bit more of a volume game for us.
As you've scaled, you kind of touched on this earlier. Regulatory reporting is a big deal for obvious reasons. How has that changed? Maybe you can give the before and after of that as well. Before software, after software.
Yes. So before software, it was just paper manifests. We would scan them and attach them to the job. And then I'll never forget one county that we have licensing for. They all of a sudden one year just rolled out a report that they wanted us to fill out, and they wanted a breakdown of volume pumped against all the municipalities in that county. And we panicked. I mean, it took us weeks to go back and try to figure out what we pumped, where, and all that. And so that really, it wasn't something that we were necessarily before looking at software to solve that issue, but then it quickly highlighted, okay, this is for sure a need, and we need a quicker way to pull this information, both for compliance stuff and also just for our own records, where are we doing business? So,
So how does it work today?
So today, I mean, it's as simple as we have all of our municipalities set up in ServiceCore as I guess like a service, or I forget if it would be a site or a service type. One of our dispatchers has handled the implementation of ServiceCore for us, and he is like my resident expert on all of that. But so yeah, we have all of our municipalities built out in ServiceCore, so we can just simply run a report based on all of those. And then if we need to, we can run the report based on the disposal location. So I mean, what initially took us weeks to pull, I mean, it takes us minutes to gather now.
That's awesome. You mentioned adding grease along the way. When you think about grease and septic, how do you manage those two lines of business?
Sure. It's ever changing. When we first started doing grease, it was just as long as we kept the loads separate, disposing of grease where we can get rid of that, dispose of septic where we can get rid of that, it was fine. But the more the municipal treatment plants are dealing with excess grease in their systems, both from their public sewer systems and then also stuff being trucked in, they are getting a lot more stringent on even like residual grease showing up in their loads. So we've had to adjust to be a lot more cognizant of, where we're taking our septic loads after we do our grease loads. And then whenever possible, just having trucks that are focused on grease and trucks that are on septic. And I mean, even with a 20 truck operation, it still isn't always feasible to try to run exclusive trucks one way or the other. Sometimes you just have to use trucks for either or, but we try to at least group things like, hey, let's get the grease runs done in the morning. If anything's too bad, we can do a quick rinse out, or we just need to make sure that we can take it somewhere that, can handle a little bit of residual grease that may show up in the septic load. So it's been just being mindful and proper training with our technicians, and also, maintaining good relationships with our plant operators that, they know we're not trying to sneak anything by. If something does show up, they let us know. We apologize. We, make adjustments as needed. Or sometimes it is that like, hey, this really wasn't grease. It was just it might've been a pump station that, had a lot of grease in it. And yeah.
Got it. You mentioned earlier about your name has grown, so people are, coming to you more often. Was that all word of mouth, or were there any marketing tactics that you found really successful?
Yeah. So we've done a little bit of everything when it comes to marketing. I mean, word of mouth is still still king. I think that, your reputation speaks for itself. And I often say that, I don't really want customers that don't want me. So word of mouth is a great way to get that. You have a good customer that's a good experience with you. They pass it on. Like you just, you're going into that interaction already in a positive place. But then, we like to keep our name out there for anybody new moving to the area that might not be familiar with our name. So we invest heavily in search engine optimization, so SEO. I'm super blessed to have a wife that has a web design and marketing company. So I've been able to just kind of trust her with that, which is paid off. So we do a lot of social media marketing. Really, I'm not super big on like pay-per-click kind of stuff. I'm just more of a fan of just let things go organically. We have a good website, invest in the SEO, then get that organic traffic to you. A little bit more control over your marketing budget that way, in my opinion. We've done some billboard stuff here and there, but that, online is where we invest the most.
And is that investment geared more towards the residential side, commercial, or both?
A little bit of both, but definitely leaning more towards the residential side. Our biggest return on the commercial side has been having an outside salesperson. So she's wonderful. She does a fantastic job. We've really honed in on what our ideal customers are, types of businesses that we seek out. So just getting face to face with decision makers there on the commercial side has been the biggest payoff on that end.
That's awesome that you have an outside person. Can you describe the ideal customer profile for someone that they're going after?
Sure. So on the commercial side?
On the commercial side, yeah.
Yeah. So ideally, we are, when it comes to like restaurants, we're looking for restaurants that have been around for a year plus. Not that we don't want to take on, new restaurants and everything like that. We are more than happy. We'd love to be their grease trap service provider. But when we are actually seeking out, we're looking for restaurants that, have a good chance of being around, the following year. We want long-term relationships. So we do that. We are looking for, we're always looking for franchises. We've got some great franchises around us that we've just been able to kind of grow along with them as they add locations. It's just been natural growth for us. We love doing service for retirement homes and hospitals, colleges, school districts. I really like places of business where, not only is it the grease trap pumping, but also along with that is going to come sewer and drain work. Along with that comes a lot of repairs, whether it's sewer repairs or grease trap replacements. So really opportunities to kind of have all of our services in one place.
That's really neat. How do you intentionally cross-sell your services to those types of customers?
Absolutely. We our kind of go-to starting place is somebody's coming to us and saying, "Hey, I want to do preventative maintenance for, say my restaurant for my grease trap, but I don't know how often or what." Our kind of go-to is, "Hey, let's start off with quarterly grease trap cleaning, and then twice a year we're going to do preventative maintenance jetting of the inlet line, the outlet line, and the main sewer lateral." And then that gives us a really good place to adjust accordingly. As long as they don't have any kind of like local compliance they need to adhere by. Hey, things aren't looking that bad. You could probably drop this down to maybe a 3-time-a-year service. Maybe it's a once-a-year jetting. Or, hey, this is we noticed that you guys are starting to have some emergencies in between these services. Let's bump things up a bit.
If our audience might be, someone listening to this might be a septic pumper that wants to get into grease, what advice would you give someone that wants to add that line of business?
I'd say for us, we had to really weigh the cost of it means kind of really adjusting your operating hours. Residential septic, you are operating your quote unquote normal business hours. Nobody wants you at their house at 4 or 5 in the morning or at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So you're working a little bit more of a normal schedule, minus your emergencies and all of that. Where with the grease trap business, everybody wants you there before they open or after they close. So that pretty early on, after starting getting into the grease traps, then we started adding a night shift. For these exterior tanks, we can get in there after they close. There's a lot less traffic on the roads. So we're not combating traffic. We're not combating people in the parking lots. So you might have to get a little creative of, if you can generate the work to have another person there that's maybe working a little bit different schedule. That'd be a benefit, I think.
Yeah, no one wants their grease trap being pumped in the midday because there's a special kind of smell that comes along with that.
There absolutely is. Most of our, most of the new guys we bring on learn really quick that they would rather deal with the smell of septic than the smell of grease traps.
Yeah, it is unique. So as you grew from 1 to 20 trucks, I can imagine there's some milestones along the way that are memorable to say, like, man, when we did this, we got a growth vector, and when we hit this next one. Are there some milestones along the way that you could share?
Absolutely. Both on kind of like the number of employees, the number of trucks, and then also just revenue. I remember getting to 5 trucks. It felt like a fight to get there, but then 5 to 10, I feel like I blinked and all of a sudden, we were there. Same thing with once we got to about 10 employees, it was a lot of, we'd bring people on, some people would leave. It just felt like we would just hit these numbers where it's like, man, it's tough to get from seven guys that are here long-term to get to that 8th guy. But then, again, 10 employees to 15 was, pretty smooth. And then I remember our first $1 million year, that felt, that was a huge milestone for us, and that put a lot of wind in our sails. And then just after that, I think it was just more of a mental thing for us that okay, we know this is possible now. So we can just keep going.
Give you some confidence to hire more people and whatnot. Along that journey, why was it easier for that? When you said it was a pain in the butt to get to a certain amount of trucks, what made it easier to scale beyond that?
So I think once we got beyond that, the schedule, we allowed some flexibility in the schedule. Then the things could get a little more efficient. We weren't dealing with as much burnout. We were really scrappy to get as much work done as we could. So it was long hours, 7 days a week. And then the more guys that we had, the more the on-call schedule was spread out. So guys definitely weren't burning out as fast there. So it just allowed things to move a little more predictable, I would say.
Got it. What's one investment, whether that was in people or systems or process, that made the biggest difference in your ability to scale?
Sure. So one of our biggest ones was getting a general manager. And that was kind of twofold. One, it allowed my brother, my dad, and I to take a step back and focus on more of the business aspect rather than just the day-to-day, get the jobs done. We could focus on growing the business, not necessarily always being in the business and just like putting our head down and getting to work. We were super blessed that we reached some certain milestones, but like, getting to like 10 trucks and then getting, to $1 and $2 million in revenue felt very reactive. And then once we got to the point where we had the team members, we had the obvious choice for our general manager, allowed us to shift to a much more proactive mindset that like, hey, like rather than waiting for certain service lines to come to us and people ask us about them, we can start looking at where are things trending, what getting feedback from our employees, then saying, hey, what are you guys encountering in the field? What are people asking for? And making the next equipment purchases based on that, rather than, hey, I think it'd be nice to have this size truck or have this jetter or this piece of excavating equipment. It's made for a lot more wise purchases.
Got it. Can you describe a day in the life of the general manager?
Sure. So I feel like his phone starts ringing at probably by 5 o'clock every day and doesn't stop till about 9 p.m. every day. And I mean, he is fantastic that he knows what it's like to be one of the technicians. We have a kind of a saying in our business is that, none of us will ever ask any of our technicians to do anything that we aren't willing to do ourselves. So he really embodies that. So there's so much respect there from the technicians to him that they know he's been there, he's done that. If they need him, he's there. So his days look so different. One day, he's getting to the shop at 6 o'clock, holding a technician meeting and then interviews after that. Other days he's grabbing somebody from the office. They're making a trek to one of our truck builders to go pick up a truck. So he's just our jack of all trades. He's in the office, he's in the field, he's delivering parts, he's picking up trucks. So yeah.
Gotcha. So he does everything basically.
Absolutely. Yep. So yeah, I'm not sure what we would do without him at this point.
That's awesome. What do you think separates the septic/grease companies that are trying to scale and get stuck from the ones that can break through that barrier and keep growing?
I 100% think it's just trust in your employees and that willingness to let go. And you have to have trust in the people that are doing the work for you. I'm a big believer in hiring personalities than I am over skill. I can teach somebody I can teach the right person how to do the job, but I cannot teach somebody to have a good attitude. So when you start viewing your technicians as a reflection of you and your company, it changes what you're looking for in a person, not just somebody that's capable of doing the job, but having the right person to do it. So you have to have trust in those people. And at a certain point, you just have to let go of, wanting to jump in, to a truck and go do the work. Oftentimes, if you're working in your business, you're not working on your business. So it's very easy to just sometimes put your head down, get to work. It's a little bit of a distraction of, the things that you might not want to be dealing with, taxes and payroll and bills and all of the, the behind the scene things.
It sounds like you're looking to hire the right people, and that helped you scale. What's your interview process like to make sure that you're matching the personality that you guys want reflected in your business?
Yes. So we are almost exclusively reliant on feedback that we get from our technicians on new hires. We are adamant about when we hire a technician that we do a paid day ride along. We send them out with one of our technicians that has been with us for a while, that really knows what they're doing. They embody our company core values, and it's an opportunity to say, like, here's all the cards on the table. Here's what we do. Here's what a day in the life looks like. Maybe this just because you have your CDL doesn't necessarily mean that you want to be, a septic or a grease trap technician. So it might sound good, the pay might sound good, but here's the job itself. Do you want to do this? If you're interested in it, then we're following up with the technician that they did ride along with. Hey, what was their attitude like? What was their, are they somebody that wants to jump in and help, or were they, just on the phone the whole time, or not focusing on the job? So our technicians know that we want to hire the right people, because ultimately, if we bring somebody on and they're not doing their job, it's everybody else that has to pick up the slack.
A great point. I'm curious, where do you guys find your best employees? Is it Indeed or somewhere else?
Yeah. So for the last 2 years, we've been using a recruiter, and I know that they are using Indeed. So this is one of the areas where it's been fun. We've gotten to kind of start implementing AI a little bit to start writing good job descriptions, some SOPs, stuff like that. Just having a clear message of what the job is to give to our recruiter to send out there. But then, they're screening people for us, sending what they feel are the best applicants that, they're very much aware that we want to hire the right personality rather than the right skill set. So, they're giving us a recap of how did their phone interview go. We thought that they were pleasant to speak with, because we are, customer facing industry. So that's important to us. And then from there, we're bringing them in for the in-person interview, and then scheduling that ride along.
Can you say more about AI? Like, what are you using? ChatGPT or something different?
So I've used, I started off with Google Gemini, when I was just first kind of curious about it. It was free. And then I've switched to Claude, which has been a big asset as far as writing some of these more in-depth documents. Like I said, the standard operating procedures, our review templates, and what it's really done for us is help keep everything kind of cohesive across the board. Yeah.
And I'm curious, who has access to Claude in your business? Is it just management, or do you kind of encourage it across your employees?
Yeah, as of right now, it's just me. As we continue to utilize it for more things, it'll probably extend out to the ownership. So my dad and my brother, we'll see if my dad decides he wants to jump into that. But and then our general manager, probably using it for just capturing how the reviews went.
Got it. This has been a great interview. If you had a parting words of advice for a septic company that is in that growth mode but is trying to break the barriers, what parting advice would you give them?
Again, I go back to, trust your team. Trust that, from the people in the office to the technicians in the field, that they are that they're a good reflection of you and your values of your company. And don't be afraid to take a step back and monitor how they are reflecting your company. You don't want to get so involved with the day-to-day operations that you kind of lose pulse of how everything else is operating. Are the people answering the phone, are they the friendly voice that you want to hear on the end of it? Your technicians in the field, are they treating customers' properties, with respect and in a cleanly manner? So don't be afraid to take that leap and step back a little bit so that you can keep your finger on the pulse.
That is great advice. And Kyle, I just wanted to say a huge thank you for being on Toilet Talk today and sharing your knowledge with our audience.
Hey, thank you. I really appreciate this. I had a great time.
Thanks so much, and we'll see you on the next one.